Hello there, and during this video we're going to learn how to make a 3D name tag for our projects. And to make this 3D name tag, we have to go to this website, www.tinkercad.com. Alright, now when you're in the home page of the website, click on Sign In, then click on Email or Username. Now when the website prompts you to type in your email as your username, you're going to type in the email provided by your teacher. This goes the same for the password. When the website prompts you to enter your password, please type in the password given by your teacher. Alright, now click on Sign In to sign into your account. When signed in, you're presented with your page. Now here are some past designs. However, to create a new design, you have to click on this button over here, where you have the words Create New Design. Now let's click on it. Okay, let's let it load, and now you're presented with the Tinkercad interface. And before we start, I'm going to start with an introduction of what features you could find here on Tinkercad, features and tools, and I'm also going to show you some basic controls you could use when using your computer mouse. Now, the first thing you're presented in Tinkercad is the work plane. This is going to act as your table where you're going to start modeling your 3D model. Here's the menu bar where you have basic commands as copy and paste, and you also have commands to import work, export work, or send your work to somewhere else. And here you have the right-hand panel. Here you have some tools where you could either change the position of your work plane, a ruler, and a notes tool to label your work as well. That's a new feature now in Tinkercad. And here's the basic shapes panel. Now, Tinkercad doesn't allow you to make custom shapes of your own. Instead, what we're going to be doing is dragging and dropping these provided shapes right here to create our own new shape. Included in the basic shapes, you could also find shaded shapes. These are used to create holes on your work. Like for example, if you have a box, you could create a square hole on your work. And we also have tools to change the view of the work plane. Like for example, you could zoom in by clicking this plus sign and zoom out. You could also change the work plane from viewing in 3D to 2D. Let's switch it back to 3D. Another handy feature in Tinkercad is that you could zoom in and zoom out by using the scroll wheel on your mouse. So you could scroll up to zoom in and scroll down to zoom out, as I'm doing here. Now, you could also move the work plane by clicking and holding the right mouse button and click and drag to the position you prefer it to be in. You could also see what's underneath the work plane. All right. Now let's click on the home button to return to the original position we were in. You could also move your work plane by pressing and holding the scroll wheel button on your mouse. So click and hold the scroll wheel and move the work plane to which position you want it to be. Now, before we start to design, let's change the name of our design by typing in your name and surname. So both your teacher and yourself will be able to identify which work is yours. Now, to start to design our 3D name tag, on the Basic Shapes panel, you are going to click and drag a box shape onto your work plane. So click and drag and release the shape. There you have it. The shape is now selected. Now scroll up to zoom in. And you see these white handles? Those represent the dimensions of your shape. So let's click on the bottom right one. You will notice that once clicked, it turns red and the dimensions pop up. Now what we're going to do is to change the length of this shape right here. So let's select the 20 millimeters and type in 70 millimeters instead. As you can see, when you press enter, the length of the shape has changed. Okay, now select your red box once more. Click on the bottom right handle. And now let's change the height. To change the height, please click on the topmost handle. Select the default 20 millimeters and instead type in 3 millimeters. Press enter and that's your new thickness of your name tag. To deselect the shape, click somewhere outside on the work plane. Now let's move the work plane a little bit so we could see the rectangle even more. Now let's click and drag the cylinder to make circular edges for our name tag. When selected, click on the lower right handle to reveal the dimensions. Now, since the width of my rectangle is 20, I'm going to leave the width and length of the cylinder 20 as well. Now let's change the height. So click on the topmost handle and let's change it to 3 millimeters, the same thickness as the rectangle. Deselected by clicking on the work plane. Now, as you can see, the cylinder does not have smooth edges due to the number of sides present in it. So let's select it, go to this dialog box, go to the function labeled sides, and let's move the slider all the way up to 64. Now, by doing that, I have added more sides to my cylinder and made it more smoother. If I were to put the slider all the way down to 12 sides, you'll get only 12 sides on your circle, which will make the circle look less smooth. So let's put it back to 64. Deselect the cylinder and let's move on to the next stage. Next, we're going to create a hole in the center of this cylinder that we made. So let's click and drag this shaded cylinder, put it on our work plane, and select the lower right handle so the dimensions would appear. Let's change the width and length of this cylinder to 4 millimeters. Now to select both shapes, I'm going to click and drag. And there we have the two shapes are selected. And let's click on this Align tool right here. Now click on the mid handle right here. Let's click on this mid handle right here to bring the shaded cylinder at the center of my orange cylinder. Now to create the hole, we must select both shapes, so click and drag once more. And then select the group tool right here. Let's click on that. And there you have, both shapes have grouped. Now, since the cylinder was shaded, it created a hole on my orange cylinder. Now we need a copy of this shape that we have made, so let's click on the duplicate command just once. And now let's click and drag the duplicated shape that we have created. So let's put this over here, put the other one on this side. Now let's start placing them on the rectangle. I'm going to place this one over here on this side. Let's put this one, make sure that the center of the cylindrical hole is at the edge of your rectangle. Now we want these two cylinders to be at the center of our rectangle, so let's click and drag to select them all and click on the Align tool. So let's start aligning these shapes by clicking on this handle right here. Here you have it, all the shapes have aligned. Deselect by clicking on the work plane. Before we group these shapes, we need to make sure that the hole on the cylinder is also going through our rectangle. So let's click on this orange rectangle and ungroup the shapes. Let's do the same on the other cylinder. Click on it and click on Ungroup to ungroup the two shapes. So deselect by clicking on the work plane, click and drag once more, and only select the rectangle and the two orange cylinders. Now let's group those. Okay, now deselect and click and drag to select the group shapes with the shaded cylinders. And let's click on Group. There you have it. That's the base of our name tag. Deselect by clicking on the work plane. Let's add some text to our name tag. So let's go back to the Basic Shapes panel and click and drag the shape text. Okay, now let's change the size of this text by clicking and dragging the lower right handle. Now to change what is written on the text, let's go to this dialog box, go to the text field, and type in our names. Now to recognize it, I'm going to change the color as well. Now, since our text is thinner than our name tag, so let's click on the topmost handle to change it to a number which is higher than 3. So rather than 4, because it's still thin being 4, I'm going to type in 5 millimeters. Okay, that looks good. Now let's align the two shapes. So click and drag to select both shapes and click on the Align tool. So let's put it at the center of our name tag and deselect by clicking on the work plane. Now, unfortunately, it looks a bit empty like this, so I'm going to go ahead and add more text to my name tag. So I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+C to copy and Ctrl+V to paste this shape right here. There you have it, another text. So let's change the text to surname. You could write in your surname if you want. Now you could change the sizes, realign your text, change their places. They don't have to be central. You could keep on changing until you're happy with your results. Okay, now let's group the name and surname with our name tag. Click and drag to select both shapes and click on the group command on the menu bar. Now deselect the group shape by clicking on the work plane. Alright, now let's export our work so it would be 3D printed later on. So let's go to the menu bar and click on Export. Now on the dialog box, click on STL file. So our 3D model will be transferred to an STL file. Now at school, it's normally ideal to save on desktop so the teacher would immediately see your work. So click on desktop. Make sure that you have your name and surname as your file name. And make sure that the file type is a stereolithography mesh. And click on Save. Alright, our file has downloaded. Now click on the Tinkercad logo so we could go back to our home page. Alright, now on our page we could see our automatically saved work. So here's the name tag that we've just made. Now we could go ahead and log out of Tinkercad. So click on that face over there and click on log out. Okay, now you could close the window. On desktop, now we could see our saved work. So let's click on that to open it by using the software Ultimaker Cura, which is the software compatible with our 3D printer. And let's prepare our designed model for 3D printing. Alright, now here we have a simulation of how our 3D model is going to look inside our 3D printer. And now let's click on Slice to convert this STL file into a G-code file, which is a file readable by your 3D printer. Alright, that has finished slicing. Here you have the minutes and how much filament you're going to use up. Now click on Save to File and make sure that you save your work on desktop. Make sure your file name is recognizable and click on Save. When finished saving, please close the window. Alright, there is our G-code file of the 3D printer. And what you're going to do now is to save that G-code file onto an SD card for you to put the SD card into your 3D printer to print your 3D model.